at you today with a video a little bit different than what I normally do. I'm normally on the very hands-on technical side, but I want to elaborate on something that I've been asked many times about when I've been speaking at conferences, when I have been doing talks and cyber talks and podcasts, and I'm always asked some of the same questions in regarding to how to get past the AI. So I am talking to you about how to bypass the AI when you are trying to get in front of a recruiter, hiring manager, and basically, get on your first set of interviews. What do you do? How do you get past? What should you do? So a quick agenda. First bullet point is AI in the recruitment process. The second bullet point is how to bypass the AI, and of course, the third are the pitfalls to avoid. Due to COVID-19, the coronavirus and pandemic, and unemployment has increased in some states, and different people are maybe rethinking their journeys, perhaps doing a career transition. So this particular video is not fully focused on cybersecurity. I mean, and actually it could apply to other industries outside of the cybersec world. Even though I come from the cybersec world, some of these points are transferable to other industries, depending on what particular path or niche you may have. So let's go. AI in the recruitment. Why is it being used? Why do hiring managers use it? Well, the first bullet point is quite alarming. Over 50% of acquisition leaders, they say that the most difficult part of the recruiting process is the pre-screening. It's actually going through all of the applications that come in, whether emailed, whether it's through LinkedIn, whether through Career Builder, whether through Monster, whether it's through it. Indeed, they say the most difficult part is the first part, and that's pre-screening the candidates. Second bullet point, which is quite interesting. Candidates are automatically graded, and only candidates with a high grade will be passed on to the initial phone interview. So, as an example, those who may receive an A through a B, they might receive a callback. C and below typically receive a rejection, and for legal purposes, the email is very generic. And most of the time, the email will say something on the range of, although we have reviewed your profile and we were impressed with your strong background, we have decided to move on with candidates who fit our needs on a closer level. Their needs are hardly explained or given any further detailed definition, but for legal purposes, it's very generic. The third bullet point, the AI, is used to parse data from the applicant pool, and it compiles a list of the quote unquote best fits for a role or position. So, as a prime example, there's a tool called Deal where it receives and analyzes 5 million candidates a month. So, out of 5 million candidates, you can only imagine the type of criteria that was put into the AI. The AI can only filter what human input is put in it first. AI doesn't decide on how to filter. It goes off of what criteria was already based in it first. And it uses the criteria that's based in by hiring managers as a baseline for making the initial decisions for the first stage. So that's why it's important to know how to bypass the AI. What are some of the ways and avenues you can take perhaps thinking outside the box a little bit on what you can do. AI still in the recruitment process. Over 67% of hiring managers, they use the AI to save time during the hiring process. So it's a time crunch. They don't want to spend hours and hours and hours filtering through the applicants, and they want to avoid the obstacle of spending hours talking to candidates who may not be the best fit for the role. So to save time, hiring managers usually use AI to basically reduce the time that's being spent and to knock out the first or two stages. Some roles or open positions may actually have a video interview where there are pre-selected questions that are being implemented during the video interview. And the video interview, when the AI is in complete control of the video interview, the AI is also used to determine the confidence level and assurance of the candidate. So the verbal responses and facial movements are very keen and critical when conducting a video interview where you're not speaking to a human being. So if a candidate moves his or her face left to the right often, or let's say there's consistent facial movements of looking off screen and back on screen, the AI will look at it as a point of uncertainty. And if the AI concludes that the candidate is uncertain, that candidate will not be passed on to the next stage where the person actually gets to talk to a human being. So there are many cases where a candidate can send a resume in, whether it's Workday, ICMS, or Talio or some other platform, and the resume was never seen by a human being. LinkedIn Recruiter. LinkedIn is one of the most popular platforms in regards to networking in the workplace, networking from a corporate level, being informed and being recommended, referred to open positions and roles and those things. But on the flip side, when you have talent acquisition that is on LinkedIn, they often use a tool called LinkedIn Recruiter. LinkedIn Recruiter is used to filter and find candidates. Now, there are some pros to it, but there are some cons. One of the cons consists of the bots. And many a times, a LinkedIn recruiter will have it where the talent acquisition will send a message, but the message lacks a very personal touch. It lacks the human feel to it. And the message, you can read it and pretty much feel with 90% confidence that your profile wasn't read. I don't know how many times and cases I know of where someone say I was messaged by a role in development when I am on the policy side. I was messaged about a role on a blue team side when my background actually comes from risk assessment. So, or audit, it happens. And so with the bots, it may say something like, hello, whatever your first name could be on LinkedIn. I have read your profile. I was impressed with your background. Oh, I noticed these things. And initially, it looks like a great message. It looks like something that could sprout into your next career move, until you receive a couple of messages that almost sound the same. And so with LinkedIn, you have to be mindful of the bots. LinkedIn itself as a whole is great. Just be aware of those who try to abuse it. And also be aware of the fake recruiters. there are a host of fake recruiters on LinkedIn masquerading as representatives of other companies. I know I met one in particular on LinkedIn where the person was masquerading as a representative from FireEye, and I said this has to be false. And I actually messaged FireEye myself. I said, "Hey, you have someone representing your company, and they're claiming to work for you, and they're recruiting for another company." So just beware of those tactics and protect your data, protect your information. You should protect your information when you're on LinkedIn. So the following or last bullet point for this slide, a tool called Arya. It's a tool is used to automatically make decisions regarding candidates. So as an example, it will analyze the numerical data just to see if a candidate is most likely to stay with a company. And it basically goes off the time gaps. If there are any gaps on your resume, background, if there are frequent gaps and breakups, the tool will perceive it as someone who is not willing to stay with a company for a long period of time, which in this state, in states of this country and countries where you are, where a number of people have been affected by COVID-19, furloughs, terminations, layoffs, downsides, workforce reductions, whatever you may know of, it is highly likely for someone to have a gap, even if it's a few months or unfortunately half a year, because I've seen that too. The pandemic started and it really hit a prominent high around March or April in some countries. This is now October, so you do the math. It's about 5.5, 6 months. So it's not hard to find someone who has been directly affected in a way where they have a potential gap. But the AI can't determine if someone was affected by a pandemic. The AI cannot determine that. The AI only sees numerical data. It cannot distinguish circumstances. So, here is the point of this video. How do you bypass the AI and get past the initial hurdle where you will be able to explain to a human being who you are, your background, your skill set, where you come from, and how you are able to contribute to the company and be an asset, being able to market yourself and explain what your resume cannot do for you, and being able to get past the AI. Bypassing the AI. Here are a couple of bullet points that I have, and this is also advice that I was given when I entered the cybersecurity field years ago. Advice that has helped me and has helped many others. I'm like a cook when it comes to cybersecurity. I would not give something I didn't also try myself. So tailor the resume for the specific role. A generic resume has a low success rate of bypassing filters, and it does. A generic resume is less likely to bypass the AI simply because it may not reflect the technologies or certain experiences, duties, responsibilities, or something that's very specific in the environment or role. If it doesn't have those particular attributes, it will not pass the AI at all. Your experience, it doesn't matter if it came through paid internships, non-paid internships, labs through school, or courses through a very recognized vendor, or perhaps, maybe it was a small contract role someone could have between 4 and 6 months just to give them the initial experience. Regardless of how it was obtained, it is still experience, because the experience when you're able to not only talk about it, but show it. It lets others know that you can demonstrate the proficiency of what you are able to do. That's what experience does. It just explains the proficiency of what you are able to do. So do not assume that talent acquisition has the same level of cybersecurity knowledge as you. Do not assume that a recruiter can look at your resume and immediately understand everything that you have. Some have a way of using context clues or connect the dots where they may look for Splunk and all they know is Splunk. They are not familiar with other scenes like our site. They're not familiar. So they can search an entire resume looking for Splunk. And because they don't see Splunk, they may say you're not qualified. Not normally, one could have 5 years of experience with ArcSight. They can have 4 years experience of Alien Vault. They can have 6 years of experience with a combination of the tools from working with Palo Alto firewalls and other open source things. So you cannot automatically say, yeah, if I write this resume out, they're going to understand everything I said. Always prepare yourself for one to not understand your resume, so therefore you can have the opportunity to explain. Connect with the recruiter that posted the role or is actively working with the open position. Good path to take. Now I will give an advice to not just initially give your resume without the recruiter asking for it first. Establish some point of contact, some communication, perhaps introduce yourself, and if the recruiter asks for the resume return, then by all means deliver it, and deliver it with the updates that prefers to the role that you were initially contacting the recruiter for. Cybersecurity conferences, attend them. Networking events, attend them. Right now, some cybersecurity conferences could be virtual. Some could be eventually in person with certain guidelines in place. But for the most part, attend cybersecurity conferences because you never know how the networking side may play. There are hiring managers and recruiters who are cybersecurity focused. So if they're cybersecurity focused, they will have a better understanding of cybersecurity. So it makes your interest into the field or your next opportunity less difficult when you're working with a cybersecurity person who has a focus within the field. Working with a recruiter who actually understands a little bit about cybersecurity, it makes it a little less difficult for you. So number one, connect with a cybersecurity staffing company that may have exclusive rights to the role. There are some companies who have exclusive rights to certain roles and positions. And what the exclusive right means is no other staffing company has the contractual right to the role. So your only competition are basically those who are applying directly to the role that's posted online in their own career section, but no other staffing company has a direct passage, if you will, to the same thing. Number two, discuss cybersecurity such as opening LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very good platform for just building your network. If you create a post or two about cybersecurity subject matters, and you can build a trail where other cybersecurity professionals can become aware of your profile, they may want to connect, and sometimes you can capitalize off the referral type of thing where it's a matter of who you know. So if someone connects with you, they may know a hiring manager who is looking for someone with your specific set of skills. Number 3, do not solely depend on the easy apply. Yes, it is super easy to apply through the easy apply. But because it's super easy, you're not competing with hundreds of people who have done the same thing. So do not solely depend on the easy apply. When a role is on LinkedIn, in most cases, the company was looking for a candidate or two, and since they couldn't find anyone, at least 1 or 2 weeks went by and the role finally landed on LinkedIn. So if you see a role on LinkedIn and it may have 200 applicants or 300 applicants already applied, just know that before it had one applicant on LinkedIn, there were already a certain set of people who already try to go for the same role. Typically, LinkedIn is not the first place when companies want to hire out, because it makes the work a little bit harder for talent acquisition, because now they have hundreds of applications to go through. Pitfalls. Do not assume that your skills can be interpreted from your resume. A large percentage of talent acquisition, like as previously said, they don't fully understand cybersecurity. One resume is not suitable for every job description, so the title can mean 5 different things across different companies. A title such as senior security engineer can mean 8 different things depending on the environment, the solutions, whether it's an offensive engineer or a blue team engineer, or whether it's an instant response type of, it can mean so many different things. So one resume won't be the best thing to use for every single job description. The AI, it sends out rejections without any human input. So you have to avoid taking it inwardly. You have to avoid just, don't make it personal for yourself. Because legally speaking, most of the time they can't really say beyond a certain amount of disclosure why someone was rejected. So don't take it inwardly. The same rejection that you have received was the same rejection that 100, 200, 300 other people have probably received the same. Do not assume that your resume will be seen by a human being. Take some initiative, and see if you can find who is overseeing the role, and express some initial interest. Take some time and actually look into the company that posted the role, not just the role itself. Because when you're speaking in an initial interview with the recruiter, one of the first questions you may be asked is, have you ever heard of us? A good answer is, yes, I have. I actually took some time. I went to the website, looked up a few things. It looks good. If you say, no, I have not, that doesn't look good, because it looks like you're only interested in the role and not the company. So, conclusion. Network with companies that specialize in cybersecurity staffing. If you can contact the hiring manager who's overseeing the role or the talent rec, that'll be a good thing for you. Avoid using a generic resume. The AI would 95% of the time immediately reject it. Do not disregard your lab or education-based experience. Attend cybersecurity conferences. You never know what may come out of it. That was one particular time where I attended a cybersecurity conference, and I didn't know that after I left, I actually won a free training. I won a free training that was worth $1,500. So you never know what perk you may obtain. And as always, network, network, and network. This is Strong Exploits. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I shall have some more videos coming up soon. So have a good one. And as always, like the channel, subscribe. Happy testing.